Hello, Matt G for IYT here. Today we're looking at the full license mock examination number 1, version 1.6. We've reached question 47, which reads, the first action in dealing with an EMC complaint should be to A. Cease all amateur radio activity until the problem is solved. B. Carry out test transmissions on all bands at maximum power. C. Seek details of times and days that the problem occurs. Or D. Complete a report form and send it to the local office of Ofcom. Well, let's see if we can rule a couple of answers out straight away. So looking at option A, cease all amateur radio activity until the problem is resolved. Well, you're under no obligation to cease operating just because an EMC complaint has been made. A complaint doesn't necessarily imply that you're responsible for any interference, and so you're well within your rights to carry on transmitting. Although there are definitely things you should start doing if you're going to continue doing that. So we can rule out option A, and that's going too far in one direction, and option B is kind of going too far in the other, which is carry out test transmissions on all bands at maximum power. And if there is some kind of EMC issue coming from your station, doing that probably isn't going to help the situation, so let's rule that one out as well. Now if we flip over to the full license manual, again in the EMC chapter there is a section about if a complaint is raised, and it talks about how, in an ideal situation your neighbour or whoever is experiencing that interference is going to come to you and make a reasonable complaint, and the advice is to start keeping a log. You start keeping a log of your transmissions and they start keeping a log of the interference they're experiencing, and then eventually those logs can be brought together, and that's going to make it pretty clear whether that interference is coming from your station. You might see that every time you're logging a transmission they're complaining that a TV picture goes funny, but it could also go the other way, and they may say, well, I've had interference all day Saturday, and you might say, well, you can see from my log I've not transmitted on Saturday, I was out visiting family or something like that. So it can go both ways, and the advice is to start trying to understand the dates and times of when any interference has occurred and start keeping a log so that you can continue to understand the relationship between your transmissions and any interference that the other party is experiencing. So back to the questions now, and we can see that is exactly option C, seek details of times and days that the problem occurs. There's also option D here, which is complete a report form and send it to the local office of Ofcom. We're not going for this answer, and actually again the manual does talk about what happens when a formal complaint is made, and actually it says in the first instance they will normally write to both parties suggesting a month of cooperation to resolve the issue, and good log keeping by both will be expected. Good log keeping by both will be expected. So even if the other party goes straight to Ofcom with their complaint, the response is going to be that you should both keep a log. So that is immediately what we should start doing if an EMC complaint is raised, is seek details of times and days that the problem occurs, and ideally also have times and dates of when you're transmitting, so that can be either be correlated, or we find that there's no relationship between those days and times. So let's skip down to the answers and see if we got that right. I can see that for option 47, for question 47, the answer is of course option C. Thank you very much. I'll catch you for the next one.